Hello and welcome to part 2 of my build of the gaming table for my son. So, in this part I will be doing all the electrical wiring, fitting the LEDs and finishing both the frame and the worktop. So, let's start with fixing some cock-up that I made and just trim off a little bit of a dowel just to hide tiny little issue that I made. Now focus on sanding. Belsander did the main job of taking the bulk of the legs just to make them nice and smooth, so that was a breeze. And of course a little bit of patch up here and there, but in the grand scheme it was quite an easy fix to get it sorted. I made all the connections first with this lovely jig. I know it's made in China, but I have to say I love it. It's really good, easy to use and quite precise. So it was a good investment to buy this jig from Banggood or AliExpress. Now I'm making grooves for LED channels, so I want to ensure that all the LEDs will be nicely embedded in the frame so that the aluminium profile will be nicely hidden within the depth of the timber, and I had to make a few cutouts to ensure that the LEDs can run from, for example, leg to horizontal stretchers or another piece of the frame. So that was time consuming, but each piece was precisely cut to fit. The most tricky part was to ensure that all the bits will flow nicely with regards to the angles of the frame. Legs are slightly inclined, so this created quite a few odd angles here and there, but with this jig it was really breeze to make all the connections. Of course you can see still rough edges, so after creating all the holes for the dowels, of course I'm sanding off all the edges and just it's still a dry fit. Now trimming on my table saw another piece just to ensure that it will fit in nicely into the main frame. So I want to ensure that I have all the pieces ready. As you can see, I'm messing with the angles just to ensure that they will perfectly fit, and it's still a dry assembly, so there's no glue, and it's just, let's say, a preparation and ensure that all the pieces will fit in perfectly. In the process, I think I took the frame apart a few times because I could fit in a couple of members, then I had to check the angle in the other direction, and be able to do so I had to take individual pieces apart just to have holes for dowels in both directions. So it was a bit of a faff, but in the grand scheme I enjoyed the process. It was quite relaxing, and it was slightly different than usual sanding or some other activities, but I enjoyed it. First time I had a chance to use this digital angle finder on my table saw. It's maybe not the most precise, but it's good enough for my needs, so it was quite good to actually be able to find that 45 degrees, and it was good tool. I can't remember, I think I paid 6 or 8 quid on Banggood or AliExpress, so another little investment. Hopefully I will use it over time. Now I'm cutting the grooves for LED strips in the main legs. Again, I had to take the frame apart again. I didn't know how deep, how long the grooves will have to be to run LEDs and hide them in the main frame. So it was a slow process. Now I'm cutting or creating a chamfer 45 degrees on the inside of the legs to be able to add a brace member to stiffen up the frame. So again, that was another stage in the process of taking the frame apart and assembling it again. So that is the brace member that will be attached later on. And with regards to attachment of the brace to the main frame, I thought I would just create a nice holes and make bespoke dowels or plugs to fix or hide the screws. To be fair, at the end I didn't bother with actually using the plugs. No one is looking underneath, and I think if at any point I would like to take it into pieces and disassemble the main frame, it would be easier without taking out the plugs. At that stage, my partner suggested why not to add LED strip to the monitor upstand. So I already made the frame, and I had to cut the groove with the leg, so it was a little bit more tricky. And at that stage I decided to cut out holes for leveling legs, and I hate this bloody tool. It's just useless. It just creates loads of smoke and it doesn't cut nicely. I wish I bought Fisher bits earlier just to use them. It would be a breeze, but with those spade bits it's just faff and I don't like them. They are not precise. Now it is time for a bit of sanding, so I went through the usual grids up to 120, then of course with a bit of a spray. I think I went over enthusiastic with the water on the tabletop to raise the grain, and then sand it off again. I don't want to go much higher than 120 so that the Rubio monocoat can be nicely applied to the frame. At that stage I wasn't sure if I would be using the stain on the tabletop or not, but I was quite convinced that the legs will stay as they are. And now it's time to patch up tiny little holes in the resin with hard wax, which is quite easy to apply, and it's easy to use chisel or scrape cards to scrape it off. And then of course with a bit of sander it's very easy to make it nice. So that's the side view of the monitor upstand. Usually it takes a couple of goes before actually all the holes and tiny voids will be patched up, so even here I had to clean all the holes and then repatch it up again to get a nice finish. And it's time to do something silly and something that I thought I will never do, but I started to stain black a nice piece of mahogany. Anyway, initially I wanted to give it a go and just see how it will look like with the monitor upstand, if I will like the finish or not, and then if I will like the finish, I was contemplating to do this on the tabletop as well. And at this stage I applied 4 coats of the stain, and then follow up with 2 coats of Rubio monocoat just to see if I like the finish or not. And each time I applied another coat, I was starting to smile more and more because actually it started to look pretty cool. So I was happy with the outcome, and it was something that I never did in the past, and it was quite interesting to see how the wood colors, grain, pattern just pops up through the black stain, and it was really nice to experience this. I actually enjoyed this. So on the left hand side you could see comparison between the top and the upstand. Stain or not to stain? That is the question. I got so excited that I forgot to unscrew the bottle. What a moron. Anyway, with each coat it's looking better and better. The first one is not looking crazy inspiring, and after the first one I had a bit of a doubt was the right choice or not, but you will see in a few seconds that with each new coat it starts to look better and better. After the first coat it was time to rub it down with maroon pad just to take any tiny imperfections or anything that will, let's say, erase the grain. So second coat, and it's starting to look better and better. So I'm starting to smile more and more. It's actually starting to look pretty sick. And in the meantime, it's time to do the glue up of the frame. It's actually my first time that I've made any legs for any of my tables. So far it was usually a steel set of legs that I bought online or placed an order for someone to make it for me. On this occasion it was the first go that I had at making the legs, and at some point it was a bit of a ooh! I thought I would be able to do it in a few stages, but as soon as I started to glue the middle frame, I realized that I have to glue the whole lot in one go, otherwise I would struggle with assembly because it would be just too rigid and will not flex. And when I was assembling the whole lot, it was easier to flex it into position and have a nicer alignment. Now, that is the biggest headache, or one of the biggest headaches that I had, a bit of a catch-22. I want to stain the top as much as I can, but with each stain application, the white resin is becoming more darker and darker, and I didn't like it. So I try to clean each piece of resin individually, but it just created not a great edges around this, which I hated. So I had to repaint every single square again. It was not a perfect solution, but probably that was the best I could get. Again, a bit of a catch-22. You want the whole thing to be as black as possible and uniform, but then you cannot actually mask individual pieces of resin. So frustrating and time-consuming process, but it is what it is. Anyway, now it is time to apply the first coat of Rubio monocoat to the legs, and it's quite satisfying to watch Mahogany come to life. It starts to be more orangey, yellowy, and it's just nice. I like the way it looks. Again, a bit of a maroon part in between. And now time to attach a figure of 8 rough locations. It doesn't really matter, and ensure that there will be enough space for them to rotate. And that was my good excuse to buy a bit of a fishy stuff. So I bought those Fisher Foster bits, and they are absolutely amazing. It's just so much better and quite nice to use. Actually, you have to be quite careful because one of the holes that I was drilling for figure of 8, I was too keen, and I think I went by a millimeter or two too deep. But it's just so easy to use, the clean cut, and the edges are really nice, and there is no tear out. So really nice application, and I'm pleased with the purchase. So now it is time to clean the edges, actually, to make the figure of 8 able to rotate. Otherwise there might be some restriction when the top will shrink and expand. To prevent it, I just made those tiny notches, and of course my supervisor is keeping a close eye. Now it is time to apply first coat of Rubio to the top, or actually underside of the table, and I just love it. It just comes to life, and the whole black just gets more and more shiny in a way when I hate shiny, but it just looks just nice, just alive. Unfortunately, the second coat of Rubio monocoat didn't go well. The temperature in UK just dropped, I think, to 8-10 degrees across the night, and because of this it just took forever for Rubio to cure, and at the end of the day I didn't like the finish, so I had to sand it off gently, and then I had to apply a third coat later on. But then I took the worktop in-house, inside the house, and then I applied it actually on my dining table. That was way better. Time for a second coat on the main frame, and again second coat just slightly enhanced the appearance. And finally all the LED pucks arrived with channels, diffusers, LED strip and so on. I tried to cut the diffuser on miter saw and it was absolutely bad idea, it just shattered to pieces, so don't do it. However, the aluminium frame, I had to drill tiny pilot hole, and then it was that easy to attach it and secure it in place. A couple of felt pads to ensure that the monitor upstand can slide and will not scratch the main top of the table. And I was quite pleased with the outcome. However, the channels, aluminium channels, it's that easy to cut on the miter saw, and it's just a breeze. Again, I wanted to pre-drill all the channels so that it will be easier to assemble later on, so I cut all of them to suit for the length, pre-drilled them, and it was just a breeze. And of course, with two little helpers playing in my workshop, it was just more fun, but it's just nice to have dogs around. So it was Luna, the white German Shepherd, and Sunny, friend's dog. And now that is the second coat of Rubio monocoat, which didn't go as I was hoping it will go. I just didn't like the final outcome. Anyway, time to fix the channels to the frame, and that was an easy exercise. It was, let's say, 20 minutes and job done, with my supervisor keeping a close eye on the progress. And that is the third coat that I applied in the kitchen, and once I did this, I was really pleased with the final outcome. So I left it to cure for a couple of days so that it was nice and dry before I went to the next stage of applying ceramic coat. Anyway, in the meantime, I had to assemble the frame, and I was going there and back on a few occasions before I was able to run all the cables. So I had to make another hole or another C-shape opening to run the cables. I knew roughly how I want to run it up front, but I had to make some tiny modifications on the way. I have decided to add the main switch for LED lights so that I could cut off the power before it gets to the driver and wireless Bluetooth transmitter. So again, I had to make a tiny hole with my new fishy bits, which I love. And of course, my little helper is helping me out with assembly. Now, time for the wiring. I'm not an electrician. And with a bit of patience, I managed to screw it all together. And now I'm applying 2 coats of the base for the ceramic coating. I'm using platinum range of the blackforest products, which is the mid-range. And the interesting thing is that LEDs, they come in strips that you can cut at 10 centimeter intervals. So again, you have to plan it way ahead how long the slots should be. So that is one trickiness with the consistency of the LED length. And the second part is that all the connectors are give or take 15 centimeters long, and there's actually quite a bit of cable, actually 5 of them, that you have to somehow somewhere hide. It's easy to connect them together, but it's just pain in the backside because the channel has no space for it. So you have to create additional space for the cable access and all the connectors that again don't fit into the channel. So it's a bit of a tricky process. And additionally, LEDs, you cannot bend them of the smaller radius than 3 centimeters. So any 90-degree bend, effectively you have to cut them and make them as an individual pieces connected with the wires in between them. So it could be a bit messy and it's time consuming to get it sorted. And then of course all LED strips needs to be centered along each section. But once, let's say, it's done, it's fairly easy to attach the diffusers. I went for semi-translucent finish so that potentially it will just look better overall, and the dots will be less visible. I know, funny enough, on this image you can see individual LEDs, but normally when they are up and running you can't really see them. And I think I'm applying now the second top coat, and on the left hand side you can see in the light how amazing it looks. I just love that little photograph. And I'm bringing the frame again to the workshop, and it's time to run all the wires and make sure that they will be nicely fitted to the frame. And in the meantime, before I get there, I had to pre-drill the holes for threaded inserts so that I can screw in leveling feet for the table. I know that currently the table will be in the bedroom where there is a carpet and underlayer, so it doesn't really matter, it will sit nice and flush. However, if in the future my son would decide to move it and it will be on a solid floor, the leveling feet will be quite handy to have. So I thought, let's get them fitted anyway. Both threaded inserts and leveling feet I got off Amazon. I will add link below in the description if you would like to buy. And now you can see how I'm, let's say, cutting individual tape at 10 centimeter intervals. So again, I think the slot for the channel was 44 or 43 centimeters. So again, if I knew this in advance, maybe I would just make it slightly shorter, or maybe I would just make it slightly longer to hit 50 centimeters next size up. And again, cable management is a bit of a pain in the backside. The good thing is that the sticking tape is of a good quality, 3M, so it was easy to attach, and hopefully it will stay attached without any issues across the years to come. So that is the second stage, to stick it in and then flex the cable with all the 5 cores inside. And it's time to apply diffuser. Again, I tried to trim it and make a cutout for the cable, and this was a little bit fiddly, but once you get hang of it, it wasn't that bad. And remove the protective film to make it look even nicer. So almost ready to go. Later on I will glue the cable in so that it will at least stay nice and secure in the monitor upstand. And now it's time for all the cable management around the frame, just to ensure that it is all good. And of course my little helper was keeping an eye and messing all the time, and just, yeah, usual fun with the dog. Anyway, I'm quite pleased with how it looks. You cannot now really see all the individual dots of the LEDs once the diffusers are in place. I'm attaching now figure of 8 to the frame, and I had to shovel it in to final place when the top and the legs were not attached yet. So I had to screw it in place because you can see the tiny nightstand shelf from the bed that was in the way, and because of this I had to attach the top on the slight offset. And again, that was another reason why I wanted to use figure of 8 connectors, so that in the future, if anything will change or the location of the desk will change, I can unscrew 10 or so figure of 8s and then shift the top to be center with the legs. So that was the idea behind it, and you can see all the colors. Hopefully it is something that teenager will love. I'm more happy with the outcome, how the monitor upstand looks like, and I'm overall pleased with how the final product came together. And LEDs, that's something that teenagers love. It's not exactly my cup of tea, but he seems to be happy. I prefer when it is maybe a subtle white background, when you can see how the black timber looks like, and probably that is my favorite one. Of course I have added a little hook for the headphones, and in the background you could see the main switch for LEDs. So that's how it looks. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did and you survived another 20 odd minutes, if you could like this or subscribe, that would be absolutely amazing. Thank you anyway for watching, and see you later. Thank you. Bye bye.